And welcome back to another episode of Dogs on the Couch, where everybody's allowed to have an opinion. It does not matter if you played the game, you were watching. So you're allowed to have an opinion as well. I told myself I have to make sure that I keep saying this at the beginning of every video. Please, guys, please like, comment, subscribe, share if you can. It really does a lot for the channel. It really does. And like I say recently, man, just one by one, and it hasn't been huge jumps, but one by one, man, I've been seeing people subscribe, and I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Okay? I greatly appreciate that, man, because like I say, I love everything that's sports, so I love talking about everything that's sports. And the fact that somebody would be willing to tune in and listen means the world to me. With that being said, let's get into our topic for this particular video in regards to analytics and how maybe sometimes in this newer era of sports, in some areas we may tend to rely too much on analytics and maybe not enough in like just relying on reality and trusting what your eyes see. Because the problem with analytics is there will be times where your eyes are telling you exactly what it is, but you can find some analytical stat to prove something different. You know, the thing with analytics is you can always find an analytical stat to support whatever your position is. So I'm going to say that again. The problem with analytics is you can always find an analytical stat to prove your specific point. So but what I mean by that is I'm going to give an example real quick. I think everybody in the world, the Super Bowl between the Seahawks and the Patriots, I think everybody in the world who knows football, watches football, you know, anything like that, I think we all wondered why on second and goal from the 1 yard line, with a timeout, that the Seattle Seahawks did not give the ball to Marshawn Lynch, a guy who's named Beast Mode, and we watch run over people all the time, and you only got to get 1 yard to get a touchdown to win the Super Bowl. Football 101 is second and goal. I got a timeout. I got a running back that's called Beast Mode because he runs over people, through people, around people, over people. Well, I'm just going to give him the ball. Let me try that. At least this very next time. Second down, at least let me try that. Now, if I tried second down and third down and it don't work, then on fourth down, maybe it could get dicey. Maybe I might pass it. But them first 3 downs, for sure, I'm running the football. My guy's named Beast Mode. And even if I don't run it, I'm just finna quarterback sneak. It just gives less chances for bad things to happen. But if you look at the analytics, well, the analytical strategy, you know, and what they would say is maximizing plays / timeouts. They would lead you to believe that passing on second and goal allowed Seattle to use all 3 downs, second, third, and fourth, while potentially saving their final timeout as an incompletion stops the clock. A run on second down likely would have forced a timeout, limiting options for third and fourth down. So you see how I can use analytical data to say why the Seahawks passing that ball and getting it intercepted and losing the Super Bowl, why that was actually a good idea. No, it wasn't. For everybody who was watching the game, and if you know football, if you've ever played football, that was not a good decision. And then with your analytics, you was doing too much. You overthought it because all of this extra, likely if you get stopped, then you got to call a timeout, and it might limit your options for third and fourth down. Well, listen here, I worry about third and fourth down when I get there. I haven't even ran the ball this on second down yet to even know if I had to use the timeout. What if I run the ball on second down and he scored? Nah, I'm not worried about none of this other stuff that happened. But I'm so worried about stuff that ain't even happened yet that I'm over worrying and over analyzing. And so now I get away from just football 101, which would say second and goal from the 1 yard line, beast mode, running back, give them the ball, score the touchdown, we all go home Super Bowl champions. But instead, we using analytics, and then the next thing you know, analytics messed up a dynasty. That analytical decision messed up a dynasty. Legion of Boom, gone. Marshawn Lynch, gone. All of the, you had potential to be in the Super Bowl for the next 3 years. Every year for the next 3 years. And all because of an analytical decision. Everybody, the players, you lost the trust from the players in the locker room. That meme of Richard Sherman doing this, like, oh my God, what are we doing? You see your players in the on your team that's got to play for you, the ones who actually got to go out there and do it. They looking at you like, what on earth was this decision and why did you make it? We did all this to get to the 1 yard line, and you mean to tell me you want to pass the ball when you could have just gave it to Marshawn Lynch? So that's just one of many examples. Like, I have other examples where I can use, there's analytical data that supports Jamarcus Russell not being that bad of an NFL quarterback. Like, there's 100% analytical data that kind of says that, well, he might not have been that bad. I also have analytical data that says that Anthony Bennett might not have been as much of a bust, you know what I'm saying, like, as he actually was. So, for example, they'll be like, well, widely considered as an NBA draft bust. It could be argued that Anthony Bennett wasn't a bad number 1 pick in 2013. Often, if you just focus on the historically weak draft class that it was, his high collegiate efficiency and mitigating factors like injuries rather than his actual NBA performance. See how that's a bunch of analytical mumbo jumbo to try to make it seem like Anthony Bennett was good, and he wasn't. He could have been good in college and all of that other stuff. That ain't got nothing to do with what he did in the NBA. And even if it was a weak draft class, you had the number 1 overall pick. And you know who else was in that draft class? Giannis Antetokounmpo. Rudy Gobert was in that draft class too. I would have rather you draft Rudy Gobert than you would have drafted Anthony Bennett. That's all that, I mean, so again, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and, more analytical data, hey, Anthony Bennett at UNLV was producing. He averaged 16 points and 8 rebounds while shooting 53.3% from the field. You know what I'm saying? And he also had a very high 28.3 PER in college. None of that mattered when he got on the NBA court and you actually watched him. He wasn't no good. So that's what I'm saying. The problem is with analytical data. It can be very, 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 very misleading at times. I'm not saying that all analytical data is bad. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there should be a nice even kill, 50-50. Half analytical data, the other half, what are you actually watching and seeing? And what is your feel for the game? What's going on? What's the emotion? How are the momentum swings going? Because that's a real thing when we're talking about sports. Momentum swings, just in-game strategies, different things of that nature, it exists. You have to make adjustments. And then sometimes the analytics don't prepare you for adjustments. The analytics told you, well, if the team does this, this is what you do. But then when they adjust, okay, well, now what? Now what? Now you got to go back and look at some more analytics. It's like, well, nah, you should be able to have a feel at this point and say, oh, they adjusted? All right, well, now I'm about to counter adjust and do this. That's what makes good coaches, where they have the feel for the game, just the personal knowledge of the game. They don't have to rely solely on analytics. Well, what do the numbers say I should do in this situation? Because if you always worried about the numbers, then why are you the coach? Let's just let the numbers coach the team then. If the coach always got to look at the numbers and do what the numbers say is the best idea, well then, coach, what do we need you for? Let's just have the numbers. Let's just do an AI generated coach, and let's just have the numbers coach the team. Let's just do that. Since analytics is gospel, let's just have the analytics coach the team instead of having an actual person coach the team. So now let's relay it to the Cavs, because this is what this is all about. Okay, because just recently here on Twitter, I get into a debate, if you will, with an account by the name of realcavsfans.com on Twitter. If you give them a look, give them a follow, if you will. You know what I mean? Some of their content is A1 content. Just so happens in this particular instance, we had a disagreement, and the mind-boggling part for me is our disagreement started by me agreeing with a comment that he had made. The issue was, the way that I talk on this channel, I'm very straightforward. Sometimes I give blanket statements because, I'm more barbershop talk here. We're more like, barbershop type talk as opposed to analytics. Now, I could get into times where I'm real statistical and breaking things down. But for the most part, I like to just deliver things in layman's terms instead of a bunch of analytical babble, analytical mumbo jumbo that makes you sound smarter than you really are, or makes it sound like you know more basketball than someone else. And just because you know numbers doesn't mean that you know more basketball than someone else. I'm sorry. Just because you know numbers, that doesn't mean you know basketball better than someone else. Just like sometimes, just because you played basketball doesn't necessarily mean that you know more basketball than some of the coaches that's in the league. You know what I mean? You didn't necessarily have to play in order to be able to understand the game and know the game. Okay. So, I guess with this particular guy or team of people, because they do a lot of we when they say, when they're referring to themselves. So I think it's more than one person that runs this account. But, in my previous videos where I clearly have a problem with two people being in the starting lineup together, Dean Wade and Sam Merrill. Okay. I have a problem with them being in the starting lineup together. That's not to say that I wouldn't mind them being one of them being in the starting lineup with other people sprinkled in. So, for example, if our starting lineup with Jared Allen out, if the starting lineup was Thomas Bryant at center, Evan Mobley at power forward, Dean Wade or Sam Merrill at the 3, either one, I wouldn't really care, and then Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, cool with that, no problem. Absolutely no problem with that, none whatsoever. No problem with it, none whatsoever. With Bryant and Mobley, I think I would actually prefer Merrill to be in the starting lineup at the 3. But if you wanted to try Dean Wade for the first couple minutes, I would be cool with that. And then if he's, depending on the team we playing and who the wing is that he would be guarding, I would kind of be okay with letting him do it. If he guarding a wing that's not as good, as far as handling the ball and taking people off the dribble and stuff like that, then I'm cool with Dean Wade guarding him. I'm fine with it. I have no problem with it. No problem at all. No whatsoever. If our starting lineup was Evan Mobley at the 5, Dean Wade at the 4, Jalen Tyson at the 3, and then Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, well, I'm completely fine with that. Let's go Dean Wade. I'm with you, baby. I'm with you. In that starting lineup, I'm with you, big dog. Because I don't feel like with that starting lineup out there, I don't feel like we had a disadvantage. Because at the 4 spot, that's where I feel like you do better guarding players at the 4 spot, because there's less people that's quick darting around to try to take you off the dribble at the 4 spot. It's less players that do that. It's much more players at the wing spot that do that. Taking people off the dribble and, all these crafty moves and stuff like that, super athletic and all that kind of stuff. There's more of those kinds of players at the wings than it is at the 4 spot. So again, Buddy, I guess kind of took what I was saying just because I'd be because I'm very stern about what I be saying, and sometimes I give blanket statements, but it's I do acknowledge certain times what players is, what players is good at. I acknowledge that Sam Merrill is an amazing knockdown 3-point shooter. My thing is just, when his shot ain't going in, you kind of struggle having him out there. And then this guy's defense was, well, Sam Merrill is a great team defender. What does that have to do with his individual defense? Because this is the problem with analytics. Because you want to say, well, you're saying Sam Merrill isn't a good defender. That's false, because the analytics proves that he's a great team defender. Okay, well, here's the problem with the analytics. Even if the analytics prove he's a great team defender, you don't think the other team got those analytics as well? They look at it and say, oh, Sam Merrill is only a good team defender. Oh, so you know what we going to do? Scratch the offense. Hey, we finna run, we finna keep running screens and keep running picks until we get Sam Merrill isolated on who we want him guarding, and then we go on ISO. Everybody get out the way. Now, Sam Merrill's team defense is effectively no good anymore. It doesn't matter because you're not in position to be team defending. The other team has figured that out, and then now they're exploiting the mismatch. Because especially when you get to the playoffs and, deep into the playoffs and possibly a championship, it's all about exploiting mismatches. All that analytical babble goes out the window. It's all about exploiting mismatches, finding the other team's weakness and exploiting it, because you're seeing the same team over and over and over again. So after a while, you kind of know each other. So at this point, it's like, okay, we know that Sam Merrill is a good team defender. So we're not going to give him a chance to do that. We're not going to give him a chance to be this great team defender. We're finna isolate him. Now all that team defender stuff goes in the toilet. It doesn't matter anymore. Now you need to go back to your analytical drawing board. You know what I'm saying? So let me just give some of the context of the debates that we were having and how he's using analytics, and then how in the end, I end up flipping his analytics back on him. So, it's about Dean Wade. I guess he just doesn't like what I said about Dean Wade or Sam Merrill, you know what I'm saying? Because, I'm specific about the kinds of players that I want those guys defending. And I guess his argument is that, just based on the analytics, they could defend anybody. So here he says, to try to defend Dean Wade, he says Cavs are a +9 in 89 minutes with Dean at the 5 this year. 45th percentile offense, 81st percentile defense. Going back to last year, I don't know why we're bringing up last year, they were a +54 in 168 minutes with Dean at the 5, 100th percentile offense, 44th percentile defense. So first of all, I want to say this. We shouldn't be bringing up anything from last year because we're not in last year. We're playing basketball in 2026. That would be like me bringing up the stuff that Deshaun Watson did in 2020. People gonna laugh at me if I bring that up to try to defend Deshaun Watson now. Even though I do think that there's a small point, because, I think Kevin Stefanski had a lot to do with Deshaun Watson looking the way he did. Even regardless, I'm real enough to be able to admit I have to use more than just the stats that he had from 2020 to support why I feel like he would be good in 2026. Because this is not 2020. So you giving me stats from last year, I don't care about his stats last year. I'm worried about this year. Last year's stats mattered last year. I'm worried about what we're doing this year. So, again, +8 in 89 minutes with Dean Wade at 5, blah, blah, blah. So what I explain to him is this when he gives me that. I say, plus minus can be a very, it could be, a highly misleading stat. So look, just the overall overview of this, and I know AI could be wrong sometimes, but, the plus minus stat in basketball can be highly misleading. Highly misleading, very misleading, particularly, over a single game or small sample size, because it is heavily influenced by teammate quality, lineup combinations, opponent strength, and garbage time. Garbage time. Okay? Garbage time. Which means that your analytical babble is including garbage time, where these weren't necessarily minutes that even mattered for real. You know what I'm saying? The other team's getting blew out. And they got the bums in the game. So these minutes that you could be referring to, who knows when they happened? It could have happened in garbage time. We don't know. You just spew an analytical babble. So if you want to be analytical, you got to break it all down. When exactly were those 89 minutes played, and who was on the court during those 89 minutes? What was the strategy that was going on during those 89 minutes? Well, what was the other team doing? to counter whatever we was doing in those 89 minutes. All of that type of stuff matters if we're going to go analytical. You can't just stop at a particular point in your analytical data. You got to go all the way through with it if you're going to go through with it. So, I just simply say to the guy that plus minus is one of the most overrated and misleading metrics in basketball, especially when used in small sample sizes. I actually watch the games. I prefer what wins long term, not what wins in small spurts or sample sizes. That was my response. His response is, small sample sizes should be taken with a grain of salt due to variance, but it's been a lineup that has consistently worked over the last several years. Not so sure why we keep talking about the last several years. Let's just focus on this year. So not sure what the issue is with small ball. Part of the usefulness of going that small is offensively it allows a 5-out look, and then he wants to give me analytical babble. I know what small ball is, buddy. But they like to try to do that to deflect away from the original point, which is, that plus minus that you're using, just like he said in the beginning, it should be taken with a grain of salt. So this is my thing. If it should be taken with a grain of salt, then why are you referencing it like it's the Bible? It doesn't make any sense. And then down here, he kind of even, mentions it again. He says, I watch every single game as well. Stats shouldn't be relied upon 100% to make conclusions, but they certainly help supplement to make better, more well-informed decisions. They also provide objective evidence to guard against subjective biases. So again, unsure what the issue is of what's being provided is doing just that. Well, so was I. I was doing the exact same thing. 100% doing the exact same thing, because you said that, the stats shouldn't be relied upon 100% to make conclusions, but they certainly help supplement to make better, more well-informed decisions. I agree with that. And sometimes those analytical stats can lead you to making bad decisions as well. It's just the problem with analytics. Whenever the analytics lead you to making a bad decision, instead of them just admitting that the analytics didn't work right there, they still want to say that they right because, that's what the analytics said that they should do. So it gave them the best chance. Well, clearly it didn't, because it didn't work. So you didn't have the best chance because it didn't work. So you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what you get for trying to predict something that can't necessarily be predicted. That's what you get, because that's what analytics is. You want to try to predict something that can't be predicted. You got to actually play the game. So you can, even in the prediction, it might look like this guy is better than that. Okay, but you got to play the game, though. And then that's how you'll end up seeing. You got to actually play the game, okay? So then he says, having more ways to win and adjust to what teams are doing is not a bad thing, which is what we're seeing in some of the lineup versatility and experimentation. I agree, but we're also seeing some garbage in the lineups and experimentation as well. So here's my thing. Because he thinks that I'm, arguing against small ball when I don't. I only argue against small ball when it doesn't work. And then I'm like, get out of it. So my response was, small ball is great when used in the right scenarios. My argument is that Kenny struggles at times with determining when is the right scenario for his lineup deployment, relying too much on analytics instead of feel for the game and just standard basketball 101. Okay. Then, he says, again, what supports your argument that he relies too much on analytics instead of feel for the game and lineup decisions? Well, inherently, what supports that is he plays Dean Wade in the starting lineup over Jalen Tyson. That's why. Because analytic-wise, RealCavsFans.com is going to try to convince me that analytics-wise, Dean Wade is the better defender than Jalen Tyson. So that would be my argument. That would be the support for my argument that he relies too much on analytics instead of feel for the game and lineup decisions. Because feel for the game, if you've been watching, Jalen Tyson has exploded this year. He's earned a starting spot in the lineup. Dean Wade, as great as he's been on defense, he's been injured and in and out of the lineup this year due to injury. If you ask me, the way Tyson has played, he's taken over the starting role. He deserves to have the starting role. He earned the starting role. And if you have a good feel for the game and you've been watching the game, it's undeniable. It ain't to say that, oh, well, just, Dean Wade is just trash in every aspect of basketball. It's like, no, I don't say that Dean Wade is just trash in every aspect of basketball. There are things that he does well, but Jalen Tyson is a much better basketball player than Dean Wade is. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's effectively true. Even on Tyson's bad nights, he's a better basketball player than Dean Wade. I'm sorry, that's just fact. And then he says, the Cavs inherently have a small roster and are forced to play smaller lineups because of how they're constructed, which I don't agree with that. I've made references to that in my videos in the past. Yes, I'm mad that we made trades to get all of these small guards on the team, all these little guards, all these small guards. But just because you got all these little guards, that don't mean you got to put them all out there on the court together at the same time. Kenny doesn't like to utilize Thomas Bryant and Naquan Tomlin more. If you ask me, Thomas Bryant should be getting much more minutes when one of our bigs has been out, either Jared Allen or Evan Mobley. Whenever one of those guys are out, Thomas Bryant should be getting much, much, much more minutes. But it's like Kenny prefers to give Dean Wade the minutes as opposed to sticking with Thomas Bryant for more extended stretches or more extended periods of the game, especially when Thomas Bryant is out there being productive, you know what I mean? And actually, making things happen, you know what I'm saying? Like while he's out there. So again, to try to give a little bit more, I guess, context of, where his, where his wild takes, his wild arguments come from, because there's so many of them that is ridiculous. So at this point right here, this is something that he, this is, and again, this is crazy work, because mind you, I said, like, small spurts and sample sizes shouldn't be used to make an overall determining factor. Okay, you can find small spurts or small sample sizes of anybody doing anything well. Like I said, I could find a small spurt, a small sample size where Jamarcus Russell was playing amazing football. But does that mean he was an amazing quarterback in the league? No, it doesn't. So right here, he kind of tries, to agree with me in a way, but still likes to deflect, So again, he says, agreed, they should prioritize Tyson's minutes and he would support him in the starting lineup. However, to say he's being punished, and I never used the word punished, I said we should stop playing with him. Stop playing with his name. That's what I said. I never said he was being punished. He said, however, to say he's being punished by coming off the bench feels off. Oh, so you're using your feelings, not just using your eyes. Take the emotion out of it. You're using your feelings, or what feels off, to say that, him, that is, he's being punished for not being in the state. It doesn't matter what it feels like. It's the truth. He should be in the starting lineup, and he's not. And like, you effectively agreed they should prioritize his minutes, and you would support him being in the starting lineup. So I don't understand what you're talking. I don't understand where the pushback comes from. He says he's still averaging 24 minutes per game as a reserve, and by nature of the roster construction, in order to get their best players minutes, he's one of the few that can scale up as a 4, which is why some of his minutes come there. True, he can scale up as a 4. He's just at a disadvantage when he plays there. And instead of scaling him up to the 4, just play Thomas Bryant. Just play Thomas Bryant more. And if you ask me, even with him averaging 24 minutes, which is probably a little bit less now, given the past couple games where he's not had 24 minutes, I'd say Tyson's minutes need to be closer to whatever Harden and Mitchell's minutes are, which would be closer to maybe 30, is where I would kind of have Tyson's minutes at. Would probably be closer to 30. Is probably where I'd have his minutes at on a consistent basis. He a young kid. He don't necessarily need a whole lot of rest all like that. He young. He young. He can go. He can go. So go ahead and give him the time. Again, there's a lot of things Dean isn't, but he absolutely is an elite perimeter defender. Wade's value defensively is his ability to guard 1 through 5. That's false. Dean Wade can't guard 1 through 5. I talked about that in my other video. Just because he can guard Jalen Brunson, and Jalen Brunson is a point guard, doesn't mean he could guard Kyrie Irving as a point guard. Sorry, big dog. Just because he guard Jalen Brunson as a point guard doesn't mean he guard LaMelo Ball as a point guard. LaMelo Ball's going to cook him. I'm sorry. LaMelo Ball's going to cook Buddy. Okay? Now, I want you to remember, he's saying that Dean Wade is absolutely an elite perimeter defender, and he can guard 1 through 5 and many different archetypes and blah, 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 and all this other analytical babble. Wade is 4th in on-off this year and was 8th last year. He loves to bring up previous past stuff. Then he wants to talk about Sam Merrill. And to say all Sam Merrill can do is shoot and doesn't provide any other value would be misleading. Well, I mean, for the most part, that's really all he does. Am I saying that he just never does anything? I mean, yeah, man, there's going to be a couple times we got a couple assists. There might be a couple times we get a couple steals, get in the passing lanes. There might be a couple times where he actually plays head-up defense and shuts somebody down. But that doesn't mean that he does that on a consistent basis every night. That's what I'm making my statements based on, generally. The overall consumption, not short spurts where you do stuff. It's short spurts of stuff that you did well. Now I'm talking about in a long term, in the long game, what you do well, okay? And then his support of saying that, you know, Merrill provides other stuff. He said the last 2 games, Merrill went 1 for 12 from deep, but still had 9 assists and was a +4. So over 2 games, so you feel like the guy whose best skill set is making threes. So he sucked at that for 2 games, 1 for 12. So the thing that he does best, he was doing it poorly. And you want to make an excuse for that by saying, well, over those 2 games, he had 9 assists. Wow, that's 4.5 assists per game. Jalen Tyson couldn't do that. Naquan Tomlin can't do that. I'm pretty sure I could get 4 assists in a basketball game. Like, we're not talking about scoring points. We're just talking about getting assists. Well, I just passed the ball to somebody who's good at scoring. What do you know? I got an assist. And then now the assists are different from what they used to count. It used to be when you pass the ball to somebody, 2 dribbles. If they take more than 2 dribbles, it's no longer an assist. Now, shit, you take 2 dribbles, do a move, do something else, and score, and they still give you the assist. So assists are kind of loose nowadays anyway. And if Mr. Analytical Babble knows anything about basketball, he should know that. Like the parameters for what's considered an assist has kind of changed. Just like the whole gather step thing. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, there wasn't no such thing as a gather step. If you took 3 steps without dribbling a basketball, that's traveling. You know what I'm saying? Back in the day, if you have your hand on the side of the ball, that's carrying. They don't even call carrying in the NBA no more. They don't call it. That call doesn't exist. They don't call carrying anymore. And we watch people pick the ball up like this and then put it down. That's not carrying anymore. So again, you know what I mean? Like we got to keep all this stuff in context, man. And then he uses the plus minus stat again. So when it works for him, he loves to bring it up. But here in a little bit, we're going to see where it might not work for him. And then all of a sudden, he doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that it ain't working. Okay? You know what I'm saying? So he's basically making up for Sam Merrill not being good at his job over the past 2 games and saying, well, it's okay because he had 4 assists and he was a +4. And he plays great team defense. Those are all things that Jalen Tyson could do. plus Tyson could do more. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if Jalen Tyson, let's just say the 3 ball wasn't going in, he's 1 for 12 and the 3 ball ain't going in, Tyson could put the ball on the deck and then finish at the basket. Sam Merrill can't do that. And if you do want to argue some small spurt of analytics where he did do it well, he doesn't do it better than Jalen Tyson. Okay? Sorry. He doesn't drive to the basket and score better than Jalen Tyson does. I'm sorry. So my response to him saying all this, I said, you did a lot of deflecting and moving away from my initial points to talk about 2 game sample sizes and focus on spurts where they do well, or an 89-minute period of basketball when a season is 82 games, not including the playoffs. Okay? You know what I'm saying? And you know, again, he says, you know, it's a small sample size, but going back to last year, it's been an effective lineup. Why do you got to keep going back to last year? Hey, look, we don't even got the same players on our roster that we had from last year. So why are we using last year? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. You know what I'm saying? So he says, it's not to say it should be used extensively. Well, that's my point. It's 100% my point. You're trying to use a small spurt to counter what I'm saying should be used extensively. But you turn around and say, well, I'm not saying it should be used extensively. Well, we're saying the same thing then, buddy. So then he says, it's effective when used as a tool in the toolbox. Yeah, when it works, I have no problem with using it when it works. Use the small ball with Dean Wade at the 5 all you want to when it works. But when it doesn't work, you're going to have to get out of that. Like, you got to get out of it. When it's not working, you need to recognize that it's not working, and then you need to get out of that ASAP, as soon as you possibly can, man. So, one of the next, because I mean, this stuff that he be saying is so much analytical babble in it. I'm sorry, because this is going to be a long video. Sorry. But it's just because all his analytical babble and all of the deflecting that he's doing. So again, here he's saying, because I'm like, bro, so look, okay, here we go right here. So, there was a point where Sam Merrill was kind of, not, his metrics wasn't necessarily looking, so great compared to some other metrics. So then I troll him and I say, but you tried to tell me Sam Merrill was doing great by shooting 1 for 12 and having 9 assists over 2 games. Now, I know he didn't say great, but the same way that I didn't use the word that he used, which was punished. I'm trolling. So anyway, he says, can you point to where great was used? You also referred to Merrill as not a good defender. He's not. And here he graded out as a positive defender. Merrill's value is in his movement shooting and ability to create spacing in lineups. Teams are going to consistently guard him the same way, whether he's making or missing shots, because of the threat he poses and the various ways he can get his shot off. That in turn creates spacing for guys like Harden and Mitchell. 1 for 12 is still 1 for 12, but there's a reason Merrill has a positive effect on lineups offensively, and it has a lot to do with his shot. Additionally, you referred to Merrill as being a one-dimensional player when he's clearly grown his ability to attack closeouts off the bounce this year, and has also gotten better in operating pick and roll sets and making good decisions within the offense. It's not to say he's a play initiator or creator like Schroeder or Harden or Mitchell, but he is very much capable of, playmaking when asked. That's not always the case for role players who specialize in shooting. He did a bunch of mumbo jumbo to say that, well, yeah, basically, like I said, Merrill can do a 1-2. Like if he get the ball, he could do a 1-2 dribble, and then he's looking to get the ball to somebody else. Jalen Tyson could do the 1-2 dribble and then make that good pass, but he could also, when he get the ball, 1-2 dribble, fake, up and under, make it to the cup, and score. And this is not something that, because if you notice, he said he's grown in his ability to attack closer, and he's worked more and gotten better at. Jalen Tyson is already good at these things. You don't have to work on him to get better or none of that stuff. He's just already good at it. There is no working to get better and blah, blah, blah. And the same way he was saying the spacing and the blah, blah, blah. Well, Jalen Tyson provides the exact same spacing because Jalen Tyson shoots a higher 3-point percentage than Sam Merrill does. So the same spacing that you're getting from 3-point shooting, you're getting that from Jalen Tyson as well. I don't think that people will be like, well, I'm not going to leave Sam Merrill, but I'll leave Jalen Tyson. You're not about to leave Jalen Tyson? Because if you do, he about to knock that 3 down. Like, I'm sorry. I don't really be seeing teams just, Jalen Tyson, shoot it. We don't care. No, they respect Jalen Tyson's shot just as much as they respect Sam Merrill's shot. It's the same thing. So to try to make it seem like, oh, well, the abilities that Sam Merrill brings is so much more. No, it's not. And on top of that, Tyson is a better defender. So you're not losing anything on offense, and you're gaining significantly better defense. Much better defense. Okay? So to refute some of his babble, You know, I say, if you watch my video, I referred to Merrill as an elite knockdown three-point shooter, one of the best in the league, and any three-point shooter of that level creates spacing, etc. I didn't want to go through all the analytical babble, which is why my whole point is Tyson shoots threes at a higher clip than Merrill and is better defensively. So here we got, I'm sorry, it's a long video. It's a lot of analytical babble, a bunch of analytical babble. Yes, and within the video, you were especially pointing to lineup decisions as a point of concern and talking about Wade and Merrill, and specifically said Merrill was not a good defender and was a limited offensive player outside of his shot. I don't understand how that's not true. Outside of his shot, he's a limited offensive player. Like, outside of him going 1 for 12 over them 2 games, what else did he do? He gave you 4.5 assists a game. That was it. I'd rather you make the threes, man, than give me 4.5 assists a game. Like, make the threes, because that's what your strong suit is. That's what you best at. Like, that's what you're best at. Sorry. So after he says that garbage, he then turns around and agrees with me again. Personally, I would have rather preferred to see Tyson start over Merrill against Boston, while Merrill is able to play small forward in spots. So that's basically what I be saying. In spots. And will need to, as a result of the roster construction, every now and again, but not really. You just got to deploy the right people. The roster's I understand how the roster's constructed, but you still have the pieces. You just got to play them. Not sure it's the most effective use of lineup combinations in larger doses, particularly against wings like Brown, although to Merrill's credit, Brown is 0-4 in direct matchups this year. Right, so in he missed 4 shots when Merrill was guarding him. So you use that small sample size to say Merrill is doing a good job of guarding Jaylen Brown. Sorry, Jaylen Brown just was missing them shots. That's it. He just missed. It wasn't like Merrill had anything to do with it. Like, Jaylen Brown was just missing. Sometimes good players just miss shots. Like, it happens, man. Sometimes they just miss shots. Sometimes trash players make shots. I mean, that's how basketball goes. That's why you can't always use analytics. You got to feel for the game and watch the game. Because sometimes you could be watching a guy who's bad just make shots. But, oh, this guy's great. And it's like, nah, not really. He's just having a good night. You know what I'm saying? So now here he agrees with exactly what I said. While Tyson is the slightly more efficient three-point shooter this year, he's only been in the league 2 years. This is his second year. The biggest difference is volume. Tyson at 6 3-point attempts per 36, I guess maybe per 36 minutes, I guess, versus Merrill with 10 attempts per 36 minutes. And how they get their looks. Merrill is much more of a movement shooter, which doesn't mean Tyson is a bad shooter. It just means you're able to use them in different ways, and not all shooters are the same. I agree as far as like how you use them, but it still attracts the same attention. It still attracts the same attention. And not only that, a movement shooter, in my opinion, is slightly less dangerous unless you're Steph Curry. And that's because Steph Curry isn't just a movement shooter. Steph Curry can shoot the three from any aspect of basketball. Off the dribble, turnaround, fall out of bounds, whatever, movement, shooting, space, whatever it is, he can shoot a three from anywhere. Okay, Sam Merrill, it's like, again, it's the movement shooting. So my thing is this. That's why I compared him to Kyle Korver, because like they're kind of similar, where Merrill can get his threes from pin downs, or he coming off 2 screens, and then as you come off the 2 screens from the top, you coming down here to get the ball and just pull up and shoot in rhythm. Okay, well, you can't run 5 pin downs a quarter. Like, that's my point. You might run 5 pin downs like that a game, because you can't keep running it, because the other team eventually is going to notice what you're doing, and then they're going to shut it off. They're going to jump the passing lane, and then now it's going to be 2 points going to a turnover and 2 points going the other way, because they saw it coming. It's only so many times you can run that set. Like, I mean, the pin downs for shooters have been in basketball forever. So it's only so many times that you can run that. And outside of that, Merrill isn't good at creating his own offense. Jalen Tyson is, however. So, he goes on to say Tyson is better in bigger matchups and in some isolation settings than Merrill, but wouldn't necessarily classify Tyson as the overall better defender. Merrill is the better team defender, and there's still some inconsistency possession to possession wise with Tyson. that experience will hopefully correct. For example, the Cavs' 63rd percentile team defensively with Merrill on the court and 1.7 points better per 100 possessions for Tyson. It's 28th percentile and 2.9 points worse. This is where analytics get you in trouble, okay? This metric right here is only including team defense. Team defense. So my thing is this, I'm talking about individual defense. How good are you at defense individually, yourself? The reason that I can't talk about one player, but then and how good he is on defense, but then use team as the reference as to why he's so good on defense. Well, no, it's a team defensive metric. So that means without the team, his metric wouldn't look as good as it does, because it's a team defensive metric. And then, like I said earlier, he could be the better team defender than Jalen Tyson. So you don't think the other team has this analytical data as well? And so now if I know that Sam Merrill is the better team defender, well, when you deploy him in your starting lineup, hey, check this out. ISO, let's get Sam Merrill playing one-on-one, having to defend one-on-one with our best player. See how easy that is? Basketball 101. And I didn't need analytics for that. So now, effectively, all this mumbo-jumbo that you just said, per 100 possessions and all this other crap, none of that matters anymore. Because the other team was able to identify that and just say, okay, we're going to remove that piece from the chessboard, and we're finna make Sam Merrill have to guard one-on-one. Find the mismatch, exploit it. That's what good head coaches do. Like that, and this is the NBA, the best players in the world, and supposedly the best coaches in the world as well. So this is essentially what I say in the response. I say the fact you're using team defensive metrics to justify Merrill being a better defender than Tyson is laughable. If you say with your chest that Sam Merrill is a better defender than Jalen Tyson, then you simply don't know ball, my friend. Ray Charles can see Tyson is a better defender than Sam Merrill. And I'll point out a bunch of other things. So in one breath, you agree that you prefer Tyson to start versus the Celtics, then turn around and try to convince me through advanced, misleading analytics that objectively Merrill is a better defender than Tyson. That's the same problem Kenny has. You relying too much on analytics. So again, where he said, well, where's your proof that Kenny's relying too much on analytics? Here it is right here, because you're analytically trying to convince me that Sam Merrill is a better defender, and that's why he in the starting lineup over Jalen Tyson. Like, I'm sorry, but I feel like I'm cooking. I feel like I'm cooking at this point. And, you know, I got to state more things. I say, and the video I was referring to was the one saying Kenny is clueless with the lineups, not the fire Kenny post. But you could use that video or the one I made about the OKC game as well. I have the same point. You just refuse to acknowledge my only main point. So again, Tyson is the better defender, the more efficient three-point shooter. Volume doesn't matter. He's averaging 6 a game per 36 or whatever, like you said, as a fourth or fifth option. That sounds good to me. That's good enough. I don't need my fourth or fifth option taking 10 threes per 36 minutes or per 36 possessions. And he has a better driving and finishing capability than Merrill. Those are all facts and my only points. Those are my only points. That's it. Not trying to say anything else except that Tyson is the better defender, more efficient three-point shooter, and he has better driving and finishing capability. Them is my only points. Then he says, part of the issue here is you deciding which facts are relevant and which are not, and rejecting any facts that don't support your predetermined outcome. There's plenty of evidence supporting some of the things previously mentioned, but degrading it to if you believe it, then you don't know ball is disappointing. I respond by saying all facts are relevant. You just refuse to acknowledge any of mine because it might not fit your analytical sample sizes. You tried to argue that Sam Merrill is a better defender than Jalen Tyson, laughing my butt off. He says, opinions and facts are different. Your opinion is Tyson is a better clear-cut defender. Our opinion, that's why I say I think it's more than one person that runs the account. Our opinion is Tyson is a better defender in certain matchups and can be more useful in one-on-one settings. Oh, wow. Same thing I said. but Merrill is a better team defender and has an underrated overall defensive impact. The facts are Merrill has a stronger defensive value across the board on most defensive metrics over Tyson. So again, you're using the defensive metrics, and a lot of them is team defensive metrics, to say that Merrill is better than Tyson. You're strictly relying on analytics. You're not watching what you see. You're strictly relying on analytics. Then he covers it up by saying, well, that's not to say that Tyson is a bad defender or there aren't things that he does better than Merrill, but it's not the black and white case you make it out to be. It might not be 100% black and white, but it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. The only way you can argue that Merrill is better is team defense. And it's very easy to make that irrelevant if you're the other team. I'm just finna ISO Sam Merrill. Now, all that team defense that he's so great at, it doesn't matter. And then I said, this is what I said in response to that. I said, my opinion is not Tyson is a clear-cut, always better defender, than Wade, period. It depends on who the opponent is and if their best players are bigs or more of a wing-heavy lineup. If it's a wing-heavy lineup, then use Tyson. If it's a big-heavy lineup, then use Wade. It's pretty simple, bro. So let me get to the because he wanted to say that where are the defensive metrics that say that Tyson is a better defender than Wade. So I go to defensive win shares, which kind of shows how a player's individual defense directly impacts the team's winning. That's what defensive win shares is. How a player's individual defense directly impacts the team winning. Just so happens that Jalen Tyson has a higher defensive win share number than Dean Wade. Now, when I point this out, he didn't want to acknowledge it at first. He want to keep talking about other analytical babble. So I had to keep bringing it up and keep bringing it up and keep bringing it up. Excuse me. And then eventually he just goes to where he's like, well, I don't know why you settled on this particular stat right here, as your way of saying that, he's better. I don't know why you focused on this one, in specific. I said, well, it doesn't necessarily matter. And then not only that, if you're trying to disregard this defensive analytical metric that shows that Tyson is a better defender than Wade, if you want to disregard that, then how can you be mad at me if I disregard any of your analytical stats and go with what I see? You can't fully support analytics, and then when I give you an analytical stat that says Tyson is a better defender than Wade, and his individual defense has a better direct impact on the team winning than Dean Wade does and than Sam Merrill does. I gave you the analytical stat. So if you're going to disregard mine, you got to disregard all of yours as well. So then we start getting into certain stuff, and I hate that it's all over the place. So he says, so objectively evaluating a game is somehow a bad thing. Trying to reference a game from November. Oh, wait, hold on. Hold on. Wait. Because I got to give context. For that. So again, my opinion for him is like, you just only care about the analytics. You know what I'm saying? That's why we can't see eye to eye, basically. It's because you only care about analytics. You're not looking at an eye test. He says, if that's your opinion, then you haven't been following the timeline long enough, and I would encourage you to go back through it. There's hundreds of game film clips throughout the season, thousands of words in articles and recaps, and have referenced several times in basketball terms what makes Wade a valuable defender. Even in basketball terms, it's unclear what in your mind inherently makes Tyson a better defender other than trust me or he's better. Pull clips, pull strategy, pull whatever you want. Go for it. We're here for it. Well, first of all, you're not acknowledging that I already pulled up the defensive win share stat, and you won't acknowledge it because I clearly pulled it up. So you won't acknowledge it. Like, I clearly pulled it up. You won't acknowledge it. I also pulled up video clips of Dean Wade getting his ankles broke by James Harden. Like, just getting his ankles broke and literally getting his ankles broken, like crossed over and getting his ankle broken. by James Harden when James Harden was playing for the 76ers. And I was like, here's a clip of what I'm saying where Tyson would be a better defender on James Harden in this particular situation. See how he just got his ankles broke? So you could go to the metrics and be like, well, the metrics say that Dean Wade is a good defender on James Harden. Cool. But then when I watch it in real life, James Harden is crossing Dean Wade up and breaking his ankles. So since he tried to be facetious and said, pull clips, pull strategy, pull whatever you want, go for it. We're here for it. Okay, got you. Challenge accepted. So what do? I pull up a status, a post that he made from the 12th of November of 2025. His post says, Dean Wade is getting cooked off the dribble tonight. This is him. This is him saying this. This is him posting that. Oh, my light too bright. You can't see it. But it says, Dean Wade is getting cooked off the dribble tonight. And then it just so happens, because I went back, had to look at the game. Who was we playing? Was playing the Miami Heat. And the player that was cooking Dean Wade off of the dribble is Norman Powell. But remember earlier, he said undoubtedly that Dean Wade is an elite perimeter defender. Okay, well then why are you getting cooked off the dribble by Norman Powell? Because by all defensive analytical metrics, you shouldn't be getting cooked by Norman Powell. Because the defensive analytical metrics say you're an elite perimeter defender. So how are you getting cooked by Norman Powell off the dribble? Oh, what did I say? Dean Wade struggles with defending? People who got more of a handle or who are quicker, you know what I'm saying? Because now he got to try to slide the puppies instead of relying more on his strength, which I feel like is better suited for point guards that are like Jalen Brunson, that use more of their craftiness and more of their body to get to where they're going. And why Dean Wade is better at guarding bigger players, you know, more fours than he is, or, you know, or wings that are more, you know, post-centric type of players. So, you know, and realcavsfans.com says, maybe it's a bad night by Dean, but he's getting beat like a drum. So this is you saying he's getting cooked off the dribble and he's getting beat like a drum by Norman Powell. By Norman Powell of all people. And I'm not saying Norman Powell ain't no good. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Norman Powell ain't Jason Tatum. That's what I'm saying. Okay? I'm saying Norman Powell ain't no Jaylen Brown, man. So if you get cooked by Norman Powell. So I post that and I say, lastly, since you said pull it up, here's you referencing Dean Wade in the exact same fashion that I did in my video. I was just more fiery with my verbiage. That's all. You know what I'm saying? That's all. I was just more fiery with my verbiage. Like that was like the only thing. Like that was the only difference, my man. Not only that, I got more of his own words. I said, since you want me to pull it up, this is him making a post the 10th of March, 2026. He says, because he responded to somebody else. He says, Tyson is arguably their most important role player and has played better at small forward than power forward this year. So that's what I said. And I didn't need analytics to tell me that. It's just watching the game. I could tell that when Tyson is playing the four, he's at a disadvantage. Can he do it? Yes. But he's at a disadvantage when he does it. Why not put him in an advantageous position? So he says, Tyson is arguably their most important role player and has played better at small forward than power forward this year. And in seeing some of the ways teams have attacked the Cavs offensively, I would be interested in prioritizing Tyson and putting him in ways to succeed. Down here, I say, bro, you saying the same what I said in my video verbatim, but you tried to act like you couldn't comprehend my point. You basically just said here that Tyson is better at small forward than power forward, which is what I said. Then you said, and seeing some of the ways that the other teams have attacked the Cavs offensively, which is basically you admitting that other teams will look at what the Cavs do defensively, Sam Merrill being a great team defender, and say, you know what, for me to counter that, let me just ISO Sam Merrill. Okay, how can you stop the other team? How can you counter now the other team? Put Jalen Tyson. Jalen Tyson need to be there. If I start Jalen Tyson, then now the other team can't just start out ISO and Sam Merrill. See how that works? So he's saying the exact same thing, like you're saying the exact same thing that I said. But for some reason, when I say it, I guess because my verbiage is more fiery than yours, and you just love Dean Wade so much, well, you couldn't understand, like you couldn't relate, to, I guess, what I was saying or whatever. So to try to help close this down, because there is a bunch more. There's a bunch more, but I want to try to close this thing down because I want to try to be within an hour and 15 minutes here. Okay, so I'm gonna skip over some things, just because. And he's supposed to come on the show. We'll see if he's actually got the cojones to get on here and try to defend this garbage. We'll end up seeing if he gets on here or whatever. But let me jump forward. I may have a little bit of time to go backwards, but let me jump forward, and I want to talk about the Orlando Magic game, because right after we just had this debate, the Orlando Magic game happened, okay? And he just did all this arguing, or they just did all this arguing with me about how Dean Wade is such this productive player and an elite perimeter defender, and it's just all this stuff that Dean Wade is just so freaking awesome at. He's just so freaking awesome at all of this at all of this stuff, man. He's just so awesome, man. So, here's gonna be where it gets a little bit dicey for him. So in this Orlando Magic game, okay. So in this Orlando Magic game, our starting lineup, of course, Dean Wade was starting. Dean Wade was in the starting lineup. Okay. Now, he was actually in the starting lineup at the position where I like him, which is power forward. But the problem is we started Sam Merrill with him. I don't like the both of them together. You're going to start Dean Wade at the power forward, put Jalen Tyson at the small in the start. And then boom, there you go. Your lineup is good. But instead, we started Sam Merrill. So look, his direct matchup is Paolo Banchero. That's his direct matchup. That's Dean Wade's direct matchup. Paolo Banchero ended up with 25 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and I think was a plus 11. Okay? So that was the stats that Paolo Banchero had, and his direct defensive matchup was Dean Wade. Dean Wade in this game played, I think, 20 to 21 minutes, give or take. 0 points, and was a minus 10. I'm going to say that again. He played 20 minutes. He played more minutes than Thomas Bryant. He played more minutes than Jalen Tyson. He had 0 points and was a minus 10. These are just the analytical stuff, the analytical babble. He was a minus 10. So remember how he was trying to use +4 for Sam Merrill as to why Sam Merrill is such a great player when he's on the court? Okay, well, Dean Wade was minus 10. So then when I'm pointing this out to him, like when I'm pointing this, when I'm pointing this out to my guy, he tries to, I guess, defend by saying, referencing stats when not all of Banchero's shots were with Wade on the floor or Wade guarding him is incorrect attribution. Excuse me. No, it's not. Because even if that is the case, you know what that's proven to me? It's proven the other point that I made, which is, let's just say Dean Wade was the one who actually was doing a great job guarding Paolo Banchero. Well, it seems like the other team noticed that and found ways to get other people guarding Paolo Banchero instead of Dean Wade. So now the other team has figured out a way to render Dean Wade useless because his elite defense, they found a way to nullify it by getting someone else, screening and getting someone else to defend Paolo Banchero instead of Dean Wade. See how that works? See how the analytics don't account for all of that? See how the analytics didn't account for the other team saying, oh, well, since Dean Wade, if Dean Wade was doing such this great job of guarding Paolo Banchero, well, guess what? We just going to switch. So now you can't guard him anymore. And then the fact that you not scoring, you got 0 points and you a minus 10. What did you do? But when I say that on the show, when I say that on here, when I'm like, okay, but what else is he out there doing? What else are you good for? What else are you doing? You get mad and you want to give me analytical stats from last year to try to support that he good, that he doing something out there. Then we watch the game against the lesser Orlando Magic, and Buddy running around out there not doing nothing. He just logging minutes. Like I said, he just logging minutes. You didn't score no points, and you was a -10. You just out there logging minutes. You didn't do anything. You didn't score any points, and you're a -10. You're just logging minutes. So, you know, to kind of bring it full circle, when I actually, this is the funny part, when I make mention of that and bring that, you know, to him, he's been responding to all this other stuff, but he doesn't respond to that. And this is what I mean. Because we went through some other stuff where I'm saying, dude, you just, you know, you love your analytics, man, and that's what you base everything on. But the problem is when analytics go against you, you don't want to acknowledge that. So he says your assumption would be solely based on that. Your assumption that his opinion would be solely based on analytics is incorrect. My assumption of that is incorrect. He says, is his opinion informed by analytics? Sure. But it's also informed by observation. Analytics help provide context and guard against bias. You already said that, buddy. More than one thing can be used to inform opinions, and those ways have been outlined. Duh, I've said that. So this was my response. I said, because, you know, he's saying he also uses observation to formulate his opinions. I said, so did you observe that Tyson was only a -4 with 4 points tonight, while Dean Wade was a -10 with 0 points? Since you're saying that you don't just use analytics, that you also observe? Well, I got analytics and observation. And tonight against the Orlando Magic, both the analytics and the observation said that Jalen Tyson was better offensively and defensively than Dean Wade. When if we going by your analytical metrics, that should not be the case. It shouldn't happen because you act like the analytics is the Bible and that you can't deviate from it at any time. That whenever you're trying to prove a point, you always got to go to just the analytics. All right, well, if we proving a point and we go into just the analytics, well, my man, the first time that your guy had a chance to prove everything that you said about him, he played more minutes than my guy. He had 0 points. He had less points, and he had a bigger negative impact. And then also, one of my other guys that I said was better, you know, that, well, I ain't going to say necessarily better, but is better utilized and should have more minutes, Thomas Bryant. Thomas Bryant played less minutes, so I think Dean Wade had 20 or 21 minutes. Thomas Bryant played 19 minutes. But in the 19 minutes that Thomas Bryant played, he had, I think it was either 12 or 15 points in those minutes, as well as 5 rebounds, which was the same amount of rebounds that Dean Wade had, 1 block, the same amount of blocks that Dean Wade had, and Thomas Bryant, I believe, was a +1 instead of a -10. So if this guy, Thomas Bryant, is playing better by statistics, analytics, and by me watching the game, why ain't he getting more minutes than Dean Wade? Why am I not leaning more on him to be out there than Dean Wade? If Tyson's numbers, analytics, is saying that he's having a better game tonight than Dean Wade, why am I not giving Tyson more minutes? Why does Dean Wade have more minutes than Tyson? Why? Explain that to me. Is it because of the analytics that he had last year? Is it because of the defense that he played last year? Is the why we still leaving him in the game when there's other people playing better than him with the eye test and with your analytics? Why are we leaving him out there? Another analytical stat that I can't wait for him to answer to me for. Because again, I feel like the Cavs' best, you know, their best basketball, their identity is 2 bigs. That's their identity. That was the resurgence of the Cavs. The resurgence of the Cavs was actually 3 bigs back when we had Larry Markkinen too. But even when we lost him, we never went away from the 2 big set was our stuff. That's our mojo. It's the 2 big set. Now he would like to say, well, what the rest of the league is doing, I don't care what the rest of the league is doing. Why are you trying to copycat the rest of the league? Do what works for you. Don't do what's working for the rest of the league. Just because it works for the rest of the league don't mean that it's working for you. What works for you is the two big lineup. There was an interesting analytical stat in the Orlando Magic game that I heard being mentioned by one of the commentators. Now, I'm going to save the clip for if and when he come on here because I want him to think that I'm making the stat up, that it's not real. And then I can play the clip for him and then he can hear that it's an actual real stat. When Thomas Bryant and Evan Mobley are on the court together, they are a plus 47. They're a plus 47 on the court together. Plus 47. So my question is, if they're a plus 47 when they're on the court together, why ain't they on the court together more often? Since analytics is a good tool to rely on to make well-informed decisions. Well, if that's the case, then these two guys being a plus 47 on the court, well, that would give me a well-informed decision that maybe they need to be on the court together more often. Instead of me saying, let me play small ball and only have one of them out there. If they are plus 47 on the court together, well, maybe I should play them more together. Because the analytics saying it, they're pretty good together. What are we talking about, man? What are we talking about, man? This is ridiculous. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like, you cannot make this stuff up, man. And then last but not least, in closing, let me try to find this because now we're going to recycle. We're going to go back just a little bit. You know, we're going to recycle. We're going to go back just a little bit, man. So here was another ironic statement that he made that I had to chime in on. I just had to. And again, this was in the Orlando Magic, in the Orlando Magic game where this happened. So the tweet that he puts out, he says, if Schroeder is a complete zero offensively, it's hard to justify him being out there. I'm going to say that again. He's tweeting as the game is live and happening, because I'm watching it too. He said, if Schroeder is a complete zero offensively, it's hard to justify him being out there. Who do that sound like? Do that sound like me talking about somebody or no? Okay, so when I saw this tweet, because of course I'm watching the game and I want to see what he's saying. I said, after he says that, I said, and you sound like me talking about Sam Merrill or Dean Wade. Don't discredit Dennis and his great pesky defense that he still provides, as well as critical ball handling, great free throw shooter, and he brings toughness as well. So I'm trolling him, you know what I'm saying? Like basically, because how you tried to do me is like I can't point out if somebody playing bad because you want to bring up all of the positive stuff that they do. Cool, but that ain't overriding the fact that this is what they doing bad right now. You know what I'm saying? So I give him his own medicine back. I dump him back his own medicine. I say, you sound like me talking about Sam Merrill and Dean Wade. Don't discredit Dennis and his great pesky defense that he still provides and his nice ball handling and great free throw shooter and he bringing toughness as well. His response to that was this. There unfortunately has not been a redeeming quality about Schroeder's play tonight. My response was this. But when I say that about specific situations or games in general for Sam Merrill or Dean Wade, in parentheses, like tonight when Dean Wade was a -10, you bring up general analytical verbiage to still justify them being on the court. So I'm going to say that again. He said there unfortunately has not been a redeeming quality about Schroeder's play tonight. Okay, but when I say that in situations where Sam Merrill and Dean Wade is doing the same thing, like in this specific game where Dean Wade has 0 points, so he's doing nothing offensively, but you will still use analytical babble to justify Dean Wade being out there. So why are you using analytical babble to justify Dean Wade being out there when he's not doing anything offensively? But you can't use no analytical babble to justify Dennis Schroeder being out there offensively. You being subjective with your analytical babble about when you want to use it and when you don't. You only want to use it when it's beneficial to what you trying to your point. But then you were trying to say that that's me. No, that's not me. That's you. You only want to use the analytical babble when it supports you. Me, I'm cool with if I have a take on something and I end up being wrong, I'm cool with being wrong. I admit openly that my initial take on Jalen Tyson was wrong. That's part of the reason I'm pounding the table so hard for him now, because I admit I was 100% wrong. So now I need to try to make up for that, because I was wrong all that time. Luckily, it wasn't too long of a period. It might have been a 2-week stretch where I didn't like Jalen Tyson. After that 2-week stretch was over and I watched him a couple more games, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I was tripping. This dude is nice. I was tripping. I don't know what I was looking at. Buddy is nice. So, I mean, I could go on because there are a bunch of more contradicting parts that he had. But the point that I want to bring up is every time that I brought up how bad his people played in this game, what's so crazy is Sam Merrill actually had a decent game. And I didn't have no problems with Sam Merrill. He was knocking down his threes. So when Sam Merrill knocking down his threes, to me, he can do no wrong. When he knocking down his threes, he could do no wrong. Please keep him on the court. I don't care how bad his defense is. If he knocking down them threes, then that supplements for whatever on defense he might not be doing. Because he knocking down them threes. That's what he good at. That's his job. His job ain't to be out there being a great defender. That ain't his strong suit. No matter how much the analytics say he good at it, that ain't his strong suit. His strong suit is three-point shooting. So when he's knocking them down, I want him in the game more. But when he's not knocking them down, I need to scale his minutes back and put somebody else in. Because now he's rendering himself ineffective. Because like I say, if he ain't knocking down the threes, and then you want to say, well, he still gives great team defense. Well, the other team can mitigate that by just putting them in ISO. Now he's not knocking down threes, and his team defense doesn't matter anymore. So now what is he doing? He's just logging minutes. That's all he's doing. Same thing I said about Dean Wade, because he tried to tell me that, well, you don't know that all of the points that Paolo Banchero scored were on Dean Wade. Okay, so you've proven the point that no matter how great of an elite perimeter defender Dean Wade is, he might not specifically be guarding Paolo Banchero the whole game, and that means that the other team identified that maybe Paolo Banchero was being guarded great by Dean Wade, so they said, well, we got to get somebody else to be guarding Paolo Banchero so Paolo Banchero could get his money off. Now, the fact that Dean Wade can't score no points and the fact that the other team keeps switching and won't let him defend Paolo Banchero. So now what is Dean Wade out there doing? What is he doing now? He just running around logging minutes, and he got 0 points and he a minus 10. Because none of this stuff, when I brought this up, when I keep saying, when I keep pointing out, Dean Wade was a minus 10. So how can you defend Dean Wade being on the court when he ain't got no points and he a minus 10, but you want to say Dennis Schroeder should be out there because he ain't got no points? What are we doing? That's what happens when you rely too much on analytics for your overall assessment of basketball. Are analytics great? Yes, they are. But should they be your number one go-to when you're trying to prove a point about a player or something like that? I don't think so. I don't think that should be your number one overall. Okay. I can't wait to see if whoever they are at realcavsfans.com, whoever they are, I can't wait to see if they get on this platform right here when I send them that email request. And I can't wait to see how they defend the stuff that they wouldn't, because they was replying to everything else that I said. And I found it crazy because I'm like, oh, you replying to everything? Like, you got a lot of time on your hands, you know what I'm saying? Because you not just replying to me, you replying to other people too. And he did not let one of my tweets go without replying to it. However, these tweets that I'm talking about where I'm basically cooking him and there ain't no comeback. I've cornered you because I'm clearly pointing out where the same criticism that you given to Dennis Schroeder, if someone else gives that criticism to Dean Wade, well, you'll defend Dean Wade, but you're not defending Dennis Schroeder. And it's the exact same scenario. Doesn't make any sense. Please, y'all, please. When you're doing your basketball analysis or when you're watching games, etc., please keep it even keel. It shouldn't be 70% analytics and 30% eye test. It should be 50-50. Now, that's my personal opinion. Doesn't necessarily mean I'm 1000% right. I'm just simply saying I've seen situations where people rely solely on analytics and it goes bad. Cleveland Browns, one of the most analytical driven teams over the past 3 years. How did that work out for them? Not too good, did it? So, Cavs got a game tonight. I believe that's tonight. Dallas Mavericks, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they play the Dallas Mavericks tonight. The lowly Dallas Mavericks tonight. Yep, sure do. 7:30. I'll be tuned in. I'll be locked in. Me and my son. I'll have them and the Dallas Mavericks on. I got 4 TVs down here. I'll have them and the Dallas Mavericks. I'll probably have them on the big TV, the super big TV. I'll have two of the other games on the other 2 TVs. Whatever other 2 teams that are interesting that's playing, I'll have those on the other 2 TVs, and then I'll probably have Friday Night SmackDown on the 4th TV. You know what I'm saying? Keep up with that, since they've, kind of made wrestling a sport or whatever now. They start talking about it on ESPN and all that other stuff. You know what I mean? So I'll be locked in. I'll be tuned in tonight. And hopefully Dean Wade isn't a -10 with 0 points again after being in the starting lineup and playing more minutes than Jalen Tyson and Thomas Bryant, who had better numbers and better physical performances. So we'll see how this thing goes tonight, I guess. Dogs on the couch. Signing off.